there's opportunity here, there's an opportunity to reinvent myself, there's an opportunity for me to learn and grow and meet new people. There's always that sort of positive aspects to things that seem quite challenging, and that's where growth happens most, is in challenging times.
You're not rushing to read as many books as possible, you just read them for the sake of knowledge.
Not a race.
Be your best friend for yourself, rather than just this dictator that whatever you do, everything's wrong. Have you ever felt like an imposter, Rupert?
Have I? For sure. I think there's definitely been moments where I've had those moments creep in, whether it's been sort of feeling like unworthy if things get really difficult, or I think where I've set sort of high goals and I've put that pressure on myself, like imposter syndrome is crept in. I think for me, where I sort of relate to that most is sort of within the work that I do with DOS Mass and sort of having that. And it was weird because I felt very comfortable sort of in the beginning, but I think in sort of recent years as it grew, I felt that it was really hard for me to delegate. And there were moments where I would kind of sit in that and feel, am I good enough for this role? Can I do it? Maybe I'm in over my head. Like there's definitely been that, but to be honest, like, it's definitely happened when I've been stoned a couple of times where I've had that sort of like imposter syndrome come in. So,
how comes, do you think, because I had a similar situation and I feel if I get stoned, sometimes I kind of beat myself up for it. Like, why are you doing this? You could do something, like you could read, you could exercise, you could do something productive instead of just laying down here being stoned. Do you have the same thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it kind of makes you question the decisions that you're making. And I think that, it's really good to have and that's what it does. It expands it opens your mind and you start having these different thoughts, and it can be quite easy to fall into that trap.
Yeah.
But there was one specific moment for me where like it was the end of a shift. I got back at like 12 at night, had some food after like closing the kitchen or whatever, and I was like, fuck, I'm gonna have a smoke. I think anyone that works in hospitality, like you'll sort of understand that when you close a kitchen at like 12 at night or even 1 in the morning, your wind down is like 2-3 hours by the time you get home. So like I'm getting to sleep, or was at that time, at like 3 in the morning, 2 in the morning. So there were some times where I was like, I need to just have a smoke to get it down quicker, because my next day would be like a 9 10 a.m. open or even earlier, plus all the other shit that I wanted to do in the morning, like maybe get a workout in or whatever it might be. But I remember I had like one specific smoke, and it was sort of like during a time where I was like due to move out, and it was just like quite a stressful time, and I had this like unbelievable wave of like you're in way over your head, and yeah, I kind of sat in that. It felt like being in a boat where you can't turn the storm off. So I remember I think I went into the bathroom, like washed my face like with really cold water, and like I just did like a breathing sort of thing, and I was just
calm down.
Yeah, I was just, because otherwise I was like, I don't want to go into a panic attack.
Yeah.
Plus I was in the house on my own. But that was definitely sort of one moment where I kind of felt this feeling of imposter syndrome, and I still think for me now, I find it quite hard to delegate some of that pressure off. So that's something I'm still sort of working through and working towards. How about you? Has there ever been like any significant?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess with every new thing you try, you feel like an imposter. But at the same time, I feel like it's a sign that you're doing something new, and you should meet that with gratitude in a way.
Totally.
So when I started, obviously before I got myself into marketing and businesses, I used to work like shitty jobs, just like porter, just like not shitty, sorry, maybe someone likes these jobs, but for me it was just not what I wanted to do. So that's why I'm calling it shitty.
Yeah, but
I have nothing against them.
It's all good.
So I was working these jobs and I was like, I just want to get somewhere. Like I felt like my mindset was so um how would you call it, like so toxic that I felt like working as a receptionist was like an achievement for me at that time. So when I got myself into marketing and business, I felt constantly down because it's like, oh, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm a fraud. They're going to find out, and I'll have to go back working in these jobs that I used to work, and that was really hard to adapt. I remember, but I guess I remember Stephen Bartlett said that, and feeling like an imposter is actually a good thing because finally you get in outside of your comfort zone. So that means you're not the same person. You becoming someone new because it's so uncomfortable to let go that old personality for you that you just feel so depressed and low and down. And so yeah, that was one time when I felt like an imposter, definitely when I was changing jobs. But yeah, go for it.
Yeah. Did you have any sort of, so you sort of mentioned with Stephen Bartlett that, you know, it's good to recognize that that might be mean that you're sort of going to the next sort of echelon of sort of success. Was there any kind of moment or strategy that you sort of, when you felt in that moment that you were like, this is a natural reaction to how I'm feeling, this is what I can do to combat that issue? Was there anything that sort of you did in that moment to sort of relieve that pain or stress?
Well, you see, like in that time, when you are in the moment of feeling like an imposter, you actually feel like a fraud. So it's really hard to detach yourself from the situation and say like, oh no, I'm feeling that way because I'm changing jobs and this is a natural reaction to how I feel. So in the moment, it's really hard to realize that. But once like 2-3 months passes, you kind of start to feel like, oh no, I actually belong here. And then when you look back on the situation, like, oh, that's what happened. I felt like an imposter, therefore I fell down. And the same thing happened when I moved to Manchester. I don't think I felt like an imposter, maybe a little bit, but I naturally felt really, really down because I changed my environment, I changed jobs, I changed.
Hey guys, thank you so much for making it this far into the podcast. If you have any feedback, then please let us know, as we always want to make this podcast better. So hearing from you is always a pleasure. Please subscribe to all of our platforms, get involved at Triangle Theory. If you've got any comments or if you want to share any topics that you think that me and Conrad would like to talk about, then please get involved. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much.
I didn't change my friends, but I couldn't see them anymore. I changed gyms, like everything in my life changed, and naturally I just fell down and I was like, oh, and in a way I felt like, oh, I don't think if I belong here, I don't think if I made a good decision. Like all of these thoughts just comes back to you. But actually this time I felt like I'm in control a bit more because I felt that before when I was changing jobs in the past. So I felt, okay, I know I'm feeling down is a natural reaction to if I'm changing my environment. So it's naturally I'm going to feel a bit depressed and I'm shifting my identity in a way because I'm in a different environment. So that was a lot easier to cope with all the negative emotions that was coming to my way. But at first it was quite, when I was first changing jobs, it was just unbearable. I was like, why am I feeling this way? And I was Googling, like, if you change in your environment, if you change in jobs, is it natural to feel that way? And it was. And it said, like, 4 months it takes to actually feel like you belong.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. After like 3-4 months, I started to feel like, yeah, it actually should be that way. Yeah.
Because I feel that especially in your case, though, you're very naturally adaptable. Like, and maybe it's because you've already moved to this country and you've had to change and adapt where necessary.
You just reminded me, I completely forgot. Like when I moved from Lithuania to here, and when I started doing Jiu-Jitsu, and oh man, like that was the hardest part, I would say, in my whole life, because I moved from like in the city where I lived, it was fourth of the biggest cities in the whole Lithuania. So, and I moved to London. So my city was like 100,000 people living there, like the population.
That's crazy.
I moved to London, where it's like, I don't know how London, like 10, 12 million,
Yeah,
like even more.
insane.
And that was like a shock to the system, because the language is new. All my friends are back in Lithuania. It was just a complete cultural shock. So that was really, really hard to adapt. And obviously at the first 7 months, probably a year, I barely had any friends. Like I had one mate. I had a couple of mates, Lithuanian mates, but one of them lived in Norwich. One of them lived with me, found a girlfriend. He moved with his girlfriend. I didn't really see him. So that was just, I felt like an imposter. I'm going to Jiu-Jitsu, everyone talks in English. Like they banter, and I just can't really say a word because I don't know. Like the humor is different, and it's not only the language, it's the culture. Yeah.
What would be your advice to that Conrad that moved to London from Lithuania in that moment? What advice would you give him now? Like moving to a new country and sort of going through all of that. What would you say you've learned and that you would be able to sort of...
I feel like I did the right thing, to be honest, because I remember when I moved to England with my mate. So I moved first and he moved after probably 2 or 3 weeks or so. And then we saw each other and we started to live together, and we decided that we will try to get out of the Lithuanian communities as soon as possible, because that's what they do. And not only Lithuanians, I've heard like Romanians do the same, Spanish people do the same, some of them, majority of them. They move into the country and they try to look for the place where there are the most...
Naturally, yeah, just looking for your own...
Most Spanish or Lithuanian people. So the Lithuanians, there's like East London is packed with Lithuanians, and like Lithuanians, Russians, Romanians, like that part of the world. So yeah, we just naturally said like we want to try to move as soon as possible. And if we used to go out a lot, but when we used to go out, we always gone to places where only English people are gathering, or like not English but like people who grew up here. So central London, go with central London. I literally met probably one Lithuanian through the whole partying period.
Yeah.
Because Lithuanians just go to like East London clubs, pubs, bars, so that was one thing that I think we did really well, because we wanted to detach ourselves from that environment. And that's what happened naturally, because then we moved to southwest. So we moved to Brixton, and like southwest, I didn't even meet. Probably I met 2 or 3 Lithuanians, because it's just not that part where they what's the word? Not that part where they just hang out.
Yeah.
It's usually in East London. And yeah, and then naturally I started to kind of adapt the characteristics of English people, you could call it. Like I started to get the humor, I started to get the culture, and now all of my friends are English people.
Yeah, I suppose like with your story, I felt like you really just threw yourself in it.
Yeah.
Like, I think you came here with an open mind to go, I'm not going to seek out and stick with Lithuanians. I'm actually going to really try and commit to what it means to sort of get to know English culture and English people. And I think that really helped you.
Absolutely. And as well, like I believe if you move into the country, you might as well live how they live. Like you're not going to live in this little bubble, speak your own language and just surround yourself with the same people. Like it's just not going to work. You're just going to live in your own little bubble and you'll be miserable.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you ever have fear of sort of being alone a lot of the time when you were sort of here, when you moved over here? Was there that sort of fear of that? Yeah,
at first it was really, really lonely because I was losing all of my old friends, and I was not getting any new friends. I think Chris Williamson said, when you're going, you have to go through that change phase where you move to the place and you struggle to find a new people because you're not really in that environment yet. But at the same time, you're losing all of your old friends because you moved away from them. So you have this lonely part where you just by yourself all the time. But I guess that time was one of the beneficial ones, because I kind of learned to be by myself, and I kind of start to like being by myself. And since then I was like, yeah, I could handle things, and I like my own company. So that's when I really, really started to like meditate and get into self-development, and obviously go jiu-jitsu and get into this part of just enjoying my own company.
Because it's kind of like where you're trying to feel more secure within yourself.
Yeah.
And trying to sort of combat that against being or feeling insecure with the decisions that you've made, or sort of like especially with imposter syndrome, where you've done something quite drastic in that you're sort of like, okay, I'm either studying this, or I'm working in this high level job, or I'm moving, countries or houses or whatever it is, and then to feel sort of overwhelmed by that. I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I feel that it is really important to sort of have that time on your own, and sort of sit within that and go, I'm comfortable. I don't want you to, you're a very independent person from what I know about you, and I think with that independency came with a lot more self-reassurance that you're capable to do things. Like when you told me you were moving to Manchester, I didn't really feel like that would be a problem for you, because you've already done the hard graft where you moved to this culture.
And it wasn't.
So for you, it was like quite a breeze thing,
Sorry for cutting you. And it wasn't because, and I've noticed that people were quite, what's the word? Curious about it in a way.
Yeah.
So I told a few people from jiu-jitsu, like, yeah, I'm moving to Manchester. It's like, oh shit, that's big. It's like, do you have a job? Like, do you have a place to live? It's like, yeah, I'm moving with my girlfriend, but I don't really have a job. I'll just find one. And they're like, okay, like, how are you gonna? And that's the same thing happened to my mate who moved from Norwich to York. He's like, no, I don't have a job, but he moved from Lithuania to Norwich by himself. He literally opened a map, and he's like, I'll just move there, and he just packed his bags and moved it. So it's not that hard, because we know, like, okay, I'll do something random for a bit.
Yeah.
Even though it was.
Yeah, I think there's that initial beginning bit, like you were saying, for the first 4 months, it takes time to settle.
Yeah.
Even talking to you now and seeing you, like, and how you've settled in so far.
Yeah.
You've adapted really quickly,
Like there were 2 things that I needed to find out straight away. So I wanted to find a job that's just like stable. I did that, and it's like, all right, next thing, gyms.
Gym, yeah.
Found gyms. Now I'm just settled. Like now it's just the process of getting to know people, doing the thing, and that's it, man.
It's one thing I always saying to Charlie, because we're looking to live together. I was like, once you have that sense of security, that if you've got your security in order, that's like number one. And then after that, it's like you're saying, like having things that allow you to be you. So whether
maintaining
that's like a gym, and then from there, it's kind of like maintaining and going a bit further out. I think once your security is compromised, and once the things that you enjoy is compromised, then it can start to feel a bit overwhelming, because it's not allowing you to be yourself. And I think that where sort of like overcoming that feeling of imposter syndrome, have I made the right choices, of, is this the right choice for me? Am I, fearing this sort of decision making that I've made, or the unknown that I'm in? I think it's always really important, like you were saying, like really acknowledge your feelings and understand that it's normal. It's normal to feel that. It's okay to feel uneasy in times that are stressful or overwhelming. And then after that, reframing those negative thoughts into more of a positive frame of mind.
Yeah.
Right? There's always a silver line. There's always like positives in all of that.
Yeah.
Like the positives is that sort of even moving from Lithuania to the UK, even though it might seem quite daunting and quite overwhelming, well, it's like, well, there's opportunity here. There's an opportunity to reinvent myself. There's an opportunity for me to learn and grow and meet new people. There's always that sort of positive aspects to things that seem quite challenging. And that's where growth happens most, is in challenging times.
Just leaning into uncertainty.
Yeah, and leaning into it. And even when I've sort of had those moments of, especially, I think mine's been more of a career sense. There's definitely been times where I've moved to different places where I felt the same thing. But like you were saying, I've always felt quite sure that I'll make it work.
You have to. The worst thing, the way I used to look at it, if I'm changing jobs that is really like, you feel like it's very uncertain. I don't know how I'm going to end up. What I'm thinking is, okay, I'm not going to die, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then you'll just work it out. I feel like the death is the worst thing that can happen, but you're not going to.
You're not going to die.
You got your support around you. Obviously, for people who don't, maybe it will be a bit different. And I'm not talking for the people with, like, if you got kids, you have to just drop everything and chase your dreams. Obviously, you have responsibilities, but for people that doesn't, and I feel like they're stuck in a position that they want to be in, and they have this opportunity to drop everything and go for an adventure. That's the best thing. That's like when I moved to Thailand as well. My job was kind of on the line, and it could have happened that after going there, I have to come back after 3 months, and I have to find a new job and I have to find a new place to live, or I could go and expect the best, and that's what I did. I was like, is an opportunity that to me to enjoy and to just explore Thailand, the thing that I always wanted to do. Like, fuck it, I'll just do it and see what happens, and it all went really well.
I think there's also this level of understanding that it's not also going to be perfect as well.
Yeah.
And like, it's kind of embracing perfection for it to be perfect. Like, I remember I was having this chat with Charlie about sort of kind of like perfectionism, and he was like, well, nothing's perfect, but that's what makes it perfect, kind of thing. And there's a chef called Marco Pierre White he's an amazing chef and a really well-renowned chef. He opened a place in London. It's just a very successful restaurateur, and one of those sort of like chefs that made a real mark on the industry. Like, he is the chef.
Invite him.
What's that?
Invite him.
Maybe one day. Yeah, he's quite an eccentric guy, but he started a restaurant called Harvey's, and it was, it ended up being, I think it was 3 Michelin star restaurant.
Oh wow.
And I think he was only like 28 or just before he was 30, so it's just incredible. But he says sort of like perfection is a lot of little things done right. It's creating smaller perfection tasks that make up the bigger picture. But the way he always says that, he says things in nature, nothing's meant to be perfect, but you find beauty in the unexpected. And I think when you take that sort of, for me anyway, take the pressure that everything has to be this certain way, like it's not supposed to, and actually that's the point. Because I would kind of feel a bit overwhelmed or feel a bit sort of unsure of myself if things weren't going perfectly right. And I still feel like, every day it's not going to go my way. For everyone, that's the same.
That's it. But
it's not supposed to. And I think it's kind of embracing that with like, that's okay. It doesn't mean you're any less of a person. It doesn't mean that, you're a piece of shit or you haven't got your shit together just because it didn't fundamentally go that way. Like, nothing's supposed to be absolutely on the dot like that. I feel like that's just an inhuman way of thinking. So I think it's also sort of about cultivating the sense of, okay, this is what my goals are. This is what I want to achieve. Is it going to go my way? Not all the time, and that's okay. There's always going to be this kind of balancing act.
There's going to be external factors that impact your aspirations or your goals. So
totally.
And that's why I remember when I used to set goals beforehand, I used to like think, all right, so by the end of, as an example, if I'm taking money, right? Okay, by the end of this year, I want to save like 10 grand, and I just put 10 grand and like, but there was no plan behind it. Like I just expected it to happen. And as I grew older, I realized that I have to set smart goals, right? So I have to like make sure that there is a specific and measurable goals for me to achieve them. So if I'm setting 10 grand, right? So from the current salary, how much can I save? If it's like, as an example, £200 a month. Okay, by the end of 12 months, I'll save 2,400 max. So I can't really save 10 grand. So that's where you start to like kind of calculate what the possibilities. Obviously, you can stretch yourself all the time, and then the way we set goals for this podcast this year, we said we didn't set goals. Are we going to hit 10k subscribers? Because that's not something we can control.
Yeah, it's not realistic.
We can't control views, subscribers, or likes. So we said, all right, what we can control the amount of episodes we're going to record this year. So once a week, 4 a month, 52 a year. That was our goal. And if we hit 80% of it, that's achieved. And I feel like that's how you should set your goals, so that you don't feel like a piece of shit at the end of the year, because that's literally how I used to feel at the end of every year. I was like, fuck, like I didn't hit it, but then there's no data behind it to back it up.
That was a really good point actually that you mentioned, because that was one thing that I took from you, was when we were sat down kind of coming up with goals that we wanted to achieve, and there was like a couple of goals that we put in there, or I think even I put in there, and you were like, well, we don't want to have those goals because those aren't goals that are directly in our control. And I was like, do you know what? You're absolutely right. Because I think there's an element of like, I think it's important to cultivate positive affirmation and, you know, say that you want to get to that end result, which is like, we'll get to 10,000 subscribers.
Absolutely.
I think there's an element of that.
Yeah.
But then also I think you have to be realistic.
That's it, man. Like, you know, when they're like the law of attraction thing. Like, by tomorrow evening, I'll get £1 million.
Yeah.
And you're not getting it. I was like, oh fuck, like
well,
it's not working. Like it's just delusional. And don't get me wrong, it's obviously
there's an element of importance in it.
Absolutely. Like it's always nice to dream like, oh, we'll hit 10k subscribers and we get these sponsors, but at the end of the day, like it's not in our control. What is in our control is to record the episodes, prepare for them, do our research, do the best thumbnails we can, do the best headlines we can, and that's it. Like that's pretty much we can control.
And I think also just making it the best that we can make it.
Exactly.
It's funny because I think there was definitely a point where I kind of felt, even with this podcast, like, am I being a bit of an imposter here and practicing kind of what I'm preaching and saying and all the rest of it. I think there's an element of that, because with this podcast being the majority of like creating awareness and cultivating sort of awareness for people to understand their personal development journey, you know, I think there was a bit where I was like, well, I have not got like, you know, millions in the bank and like a really successful business, but I don't think, and there was an element where I was like, do I feel like an imposter there? But my answer to that is no, because I feel that anyone in their journey can still have that sort of give advice from regardless of kind of, and that's kind of what you sent me with that
Alex
Hormozy. It's a case of, you know, people in all walks of life, all shapes and form, are always going to have things to say and things to share. And I think that there's so much value in sort of understanding and talking to people. And I think a way for me to sort of, like, I'm learning so much through this, just from the research to talking to people about certain subjects to talking to you. And if there's a way for me to sort of amplify everything that I've learned through this, then that's great.
Exactly. It's not like we just talk from what we know. Yes, there's a point where we like share our stories, but we also do the research. So it's not like we just preach
Yeah.
whatever comes to our mind. And don't get me wrong, I felt like an imposter as well. Like we're doing this podcast, and as you said, like I don't have a successful business, $1 million business. I don't have a mansion. I don't have a amazing car. Like these things that society views as successful things, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, hey guys, your feedback is very important. And no, this is not an advertisement. Actually, what I'm asking from you is to leave a comment below what you liked and most importantly, what you disliked about this episode, because we can improve on the next episodes and we can make a better content for you to listen. Give us also a topics you'd like to us talking about, and we can prepare, do your research and talk about it on the next episodes. Thank you. I remember the person that I was at 20 years old, and I remember that guy just seeking for any advice to get better. And now I could definitely give him an advice. So that's really the people I'm trying to reach. I'm not giving advice to a CEO who's like, he knows what self-development is, right?
Yeah, you never know. I think one day you will.
Yeah, you will.
Sure.
At this point, I'm saying.
Yeah, but I think it's really important to also, like with that, I think for me as well, it's sort of embracing, never putting the expectations of your own personal standards onto someone else.
Yeah.
But the personal standards that you have for yourself, giving yourself leeway and balance to be able to say, these are the expectations I have, but I'm not going to let them be to the detriment of my judgment on me.
Yeah.
So sort of saying like, okay, these are the goals that I want to achieve. Are they achievable and are they within my control? Yes. Okay, great. Those are great goals to have. And even if you're just coming under those goals, or let's say you're exceeding them, to not put so much expectation that it becomes a burden. Like even if you were to underachieve it, or even if you were to overachieve it and then feel like an imposter in that.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to try and keep that balance between kind of, this is who I am and this is where I want to go and this is where I'm at right now. Even if I think about sort of my journey in Jiu-Jitsu, it's like, yes, this is where I want to go with Jiu-Jitsu, but this is the skill set I'm at now. I'm not going to put too much expectation of where I'm at now, because I'm just treating every day like an open learning experience.
Yeah.
And it's going to go my way, it's not going to go my way, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go in there with the expectation that I have to be able to beat everyone I roll and spar with. I'm going in there with, I just want to feel things and learn things. And I've really tried to take that.
That's the best approach, man.
Yeah, you know, because I'm not trying to be anything.
Yeah.
And I feel that it's helped me so much, even with my own sort of career is like, I'm not trying to be anything with DOSMAS. I'm just trying to learn every day and go in there with the mindset that if I can say that I've learned something that day, that is a huge win, even if it's from a fail or if it's from a success. I've tried to remove the expectation of where I should be at the age that I'm at, or where DOSMAS should be at, because that just puts way more pressure
yeah.
and
that's what
makes
you
me
feel
like an imposter
at the end of the day. Yeah.
So I just remove that and go, today's a day where I'm going to just try my best and learn what I can, regardless of what the outcomes are.
100%.
And that's kind of made me think, that's kind of made me feel a lot more comfortable with the idea that failure is a great learning opportunity. I know that people say that a lot, especially on social, that, you know, try and view failure as an opportunity to understand. But I think it's also given me more of a understanding of like trying to ask others for a lot more help and advice and delegate as well. Because I was talking to someone as well, my bookkeeper, the guy who does all of our bookkeeping, he used to bookkeep for someone that's really successful. I won't mention his name, but I really look up to him. as just someone in business. And I was like, tell me what his characteristics are like, because he would speak to him every day and he still speaks to me every day. And, you know, this is a guy that's got like, you know, one of the biggest, like, he's just huge in hospitality. And he was like, do you know what? He was quite bullish and quite sort of in the beginning of his business journey, but he walks into every meeting with like the biggest open mind and is prepared to learn, prepared to be humiliated.
Yeah.
He listens to you. He makes you feel like, you know, you're the only one in the room kind of characteristics. He's very honest. He has his integrity. And that gave me a lot of hope for, because you kind of think about these like big CEOs being like complete sharks and people that, you know, and even now I was like, I don't even know if I could ever be that person. But hearing that story sort of about this guy was like, well, that doesn't sound too dissimilar from what I'm trying to cultivate in myself when it comes to business. And that gave me a lot of kind of hope in a way, I think, because there's someone that's made a real success that's just leaning into that.
Yeah.
I've got no expectation on things. I'm just here to learn.
Yeah, thinking that you know everything is just simply ignorant.
Yeah,
and
totally agree.
that's what I'm trying to do as well with our team. Like when a creative designer gives ideas to do, yeah, fair enough, do. Like I don't know what's working, so why should I say my, like, yes, I have my opinions. I think that I think we should keep the standards to this level, but at the same time, I'm not expecting to come up with ideas. She's the creative designer, so you do the thing. Like I'm not here to tell you what's right or what's wrong, and I feel that's the best way to do. Like just help people to do their thing, and that way they're going to be more creative, more open-minded. And I love when she's coming with ideas like, look, we can do this, we can do that. Yeah, do it. Like I don't know what's working, so no one knows. So that's the beauty of it, just having open-minded. And like you came with the idea today, doing breathing exercises. Like yeah, let's do it. Like never seen it before, so why not?
There's no right way of kind of doing
Exactly.
things at this point.
Exactly.
And I think that really allows room for further growth in it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always tried to see things from that perspective.
Absolutely.
When you sort of think about other sort of tips or exercises that keep you grounded and keep you sort of in a state of where you feel more comfortable than yourself, like, and you don't feel imposter, is there anything that comes to mind with that?
I feel just being humble in a way. If I'm not sure if that's the right way to put it. I feel like just meeting,
Having a bit of humility in a way. I
yeah,
guess.
having a bit of humility, like with every situation, look at it as, yeah, I could actually learn something from it. Like don't look at it negatively in a way, and especially because imposter comes from feeling I don't belong here, I'm a fraud, and that's usually what happens when you change your environment or you change jobs, change relationships, and like, oh, I'm not really worthy of that person, I'm not really worthy of that job, I'm not really worthy of these friends. But you have to realize that it comes probably from a childhood trauma. So you have to think about what made you feel this way when you were 5, 7, 8 years old, and then kind of meet that person, that little yourself in your imagination, say like, look, I'm actually worthy, and I think you are worthy as well. Like the reason that someone said to you that you are unworthy when you are 5 years old, it's not your fault. Like someone said it and you took it too personally, which is completely fine. Like when I was a kid, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and my brother used to just take the piss out of me, like in front of my friends, in front of his friends. And now we have a good relationship because I don't feel grudge on him, and he knows that he didn't do a good thing at that time. But at that time, he was like 16 years older than me, so like 23 or something. So he was just taking a piss out of me and thinking it's funny because he had quite a rough childhood as well. And yeah, and till this day, like, I'm feeling like I'm not good enough at things. So I remember I asked him something. He's like, yeah, just get, like, fuck off, like, get out, like, you know, you don't really belong here, like, stuff like that is. And I remember I used to cry. I didn't really understand, like, why is he so rude and unpleasant to me in a way. But till this day, it haunts me. Like, I'm changing the jobs and, like, fuck, like, I'm really not good. Like, I'm gonna get sacked. I'm not good enough. Like, or with this podcast, like, I feel like I'm a bit of fraud. But obviously, I'm a lot better right now to actually realize when it's coming, and when it's coming up, it's like, nah, I'm actually know what I'm doing. I trust my skills, and it's not like I'm shutting it down, but I meet it with compassion and say, like, look, you feel that way because when you was a kid, someone took the piss out of you. So I'm here now. This is the evidence that I can do these things, and just trust me. And I feel like, yeah, just meeting with humility, compassion, and just being compassionate to yourself rather than just beating yourself up every time you fail or don't achieve the goal. I feel that's why it's so important to set these goals and make sure that you are in control of them as much as you possibly can. So stuff like, I'm going to record 52 podcast episodes this year because I can do one every week, 4 every month, and 52 a year. Because at the end of the month, if you're not going to hit 10k subscribers, you're going to beat yourself up because you set yourself this goal and again you failed, and then all the childhood trauma comes back and, like, oh, you're not good enough, you're not worthy, you this, you that, and you just set yourself for failure.
This, like, sort of understanding those trigger points,
Yeah,
you know, and it's a really important one that you've mentioned. I think that especially with imposter syndrome, when it comes from a place of not feeling good enough or feeling like you have kind of got something to prove and fallen short, and that kind of feeds into the fire of you also feeling not good enough. I think it's a hard one, isn't it? Because you're kind of like, I can relate to that because I remember feeling I was never good enough between both my parents that weren't together, because I always kind of had to I always felt like I was disappointing one of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If I was spending time with either parent. And that kind of fed into...
Sorry for coming,
Yeah,
but
no,
where do you think it's coming from? Like, why do you think if you felt like you disappointed them?
Well, because as sort of like in between being parents that aren't together, if I was spending time with mum, I felt like that was upsetting dad. If I was spending time with dad, I felt that. So I kind of was caught in the middle of, you know, I was in being this kind of model son in a way. I always felt like I was not doing the right thing, even though, like, how could I? You know, I'm just a child. And that sort of feeling of not good enough, you know, then it kind of, in everything that I did, where I kind of fell short or felt like I was way over my head, or that same kind of feeling came back where it's like you're worthless, kind of hitting yourself with a stick, almost type behavior.
Hitting yourself with a stick, yeah.
So yeah, and like with everything that I do, or even with things that I do, like day to day or job wise, that same kind of emotional feeling creeps in. So it's trying to recognize that I'm better equipped now than I was back then, and that it's not necessarily a personal reflection on me or how I am or who I am as a person. It's trying to get past that barrier of, hey, this has got nothing, it's not to do with you. Like, Um, it's kind of almost like removing yourself from the situation itself and putting yourself in a frame of mind that goes, I can and I will do, and I am not this person that needs to be this all-encompassing problem solver. You know?
That's it. Why is sorry for
Yeah, no,
for
go
cut
for
you,
it.
but I feel like that's why it's important to remember that you have the stack of evidence that you did good things before that. So give yourself this permission to feel good about yourself. Don't think about. I know it's really hard to realize that bit, but most of the times you feel like you're not worthy because of simply your childhood trauma, and it comes back every time you're trying something new. But you have this stack of evidence already. Like, no, I actually, in my, as you say, in your case, like I built a business. I started doing jiu-jitsu. I'm quite successful in it. I'm successful in my business. I'm successful in my relationships. I'm a good son, good brother. You try to take the characteristics of yourself that are actually mean something. Like you're a kind person, you're funny, you're handsome, like all of this positive stuff, instead of, oh, I don't have this, like I don't have 10k subscribers, so that means I'm not worthy. It's irrelevant.
For sure. And I think the other part to that is, I think when you feel in those times of where you feel like you're coming short to things, or you aren't, or sort of in that mindset of feeling not good enough, it's kind of giving yourself compassion and holding yourself in a way, like going back and giving that child a hug and sort of saying, it's going to be okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you're not at fault here.
Mm.
No, that's just, it is just life. And it's not an extension of you being a bad person. It's just, you know, it's okay. It's, you know, it's holding yourself with more empathy and compassion towards yourself that allows you to, I think, overcome that feeling of like overwhelming, feeling unworthy, things aren't easy for me type of thing. It's like, it was never supposed to be easy.
Yeah, I put some statistics as well. We covered so much. I didn't even check my notes, but I covered pulled out some statistics, and I also looked at the types of imposter syndrome. So, in terms of statistics, I feel like I just wanted to know it because it feels like women feel more imposter than men.
That's interesting.
So around 77% of people in the UK have experienced imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. Women are more likely to experience imposter syndrome than men. So 53% of women report feelings of self-doubt and feeling underqualified compared to 37% of men. And then I think this is what is this podcast is all about. We're trying to reach all people, but mainly we talk about millennials and Gen Z, obviously, because we are quite in that category. So I feel that's what these people are going to relate to us the most. So younger generations, particularly Gen Z and millennials. So Gen Z 66% and millennials 58% report a higher rates of imposter syndrome compared to Gen X 41% and those over 59 25. So it's like twice, almost 3 times more. We feel more imposter syndrome than our elders. And types of imposter syndrome, I feel like, is quite interesting. And after I'm going to cover them, let me know which one do you relate the most.
Yeah.
So the perfectionist, fear of not meeting high expectations. The superwoman, pressure to work harder than everyone else. The natural genius, struggles with not grasping things immediately. The soloist, reluctance to ask for help. And the expert, constant need to know everything. Would you think?
Probably the fear for asking for help and then setting excessively high goals, I think, for sure.
The perfectionist and which one is the soloist.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
What about you?
I feel like perfectionists, fear of not meeting high expectations, definitely, and I feel that's the most people.
Yeah.
Like, they just want to like reach do the best work, and then I feel like the natural genius. Like, I struggle when I'm not grasping the things immediately. So, say for example, a perfect example. Yesterday I read a book, and I was proper tired on a coach to London. It's like, but I have to finish reading this 10 pages a day. So I was reading. I read all of it, and then I put the book down, and I was sitting down. I was like, what did I read about? And I couldn't remember a thing. I was like, why are you reading if you can't get it? Like, if you can't remember what you read. Yeah. And that I started to almost beat myself. Was like, it's fine. Tomorrow you'll just read the same 10 pages. And like, you're not rushing to read as many books as possible. You just reading for the sake of knowledge. So
it's not a race. That's
exactly.
it,
But
you know.
I'm still in that mindset.
Yeah.
I have to read the most amount of books, the most amount of episodes I need to do. Like, I need to do this, I need to do that. It's just, I'm just always in that constant race. Like, even my girlfriend is like, she kind of like points it down for me. It's like, why are you always this way? Like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that. And it was really funny because my girlfriend and I, probably it was like a month ago, we sat down and I'm journaling and she does as well. So I was like, I want to look back on what did I say last year in my journal. And I opened it and I just started to laugh because every part is like, okay, it was a great day. I could do this better. I could do that better. And every single day I write what I could do better, what went wrong. Like, I want to become this. I want to become, none of it like
what I enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, like when you're looking back, you realize how much you're in this
mindset
chaos.
It's
like,
funny because
you always want to like, oh, I didn't read. Why I didn't read? Like, it's just constant battle with yourself.
It's that fear of. I think there's that fear of inadequacy where you don't feel like you're enough right now because there's always something to hit or something to get to.
I'm going to be happy when.
Yeah. Instead of actually looking at what you have right now and being okay and content with that. I think, and I'm the same as you, because I was honestly questioning whether or not I was actually fucking depressed, like by looking back in my journal, because everything was either saying that you didn't do this, you didn't do that, you didn't achieve that, this is what went wrong with your day, and actually going, fuck, well, what did I actually enjoy? You know, what was a really nice moment, what, you know, and I think that it comes to we're very similar in the sense that we're both competitive in that we always want to strive and be better. But then it's like, what are we striving, wanting to be better for? Like, I think if you're, like you were saying, reading 10 pages a day is an amazing achievement and you'll get through thousands of books in like such a short time. And there was a certain kind of really interesting quote where, even for my journaling, where it was like, journal out of inspiration, not obligation. So it's kind of like doing things with the intent, like reading for the love of reading, not for the reading of like, I've got to read this because this is going to get me somewhere. Because I don't know if it's got to work for you, you know? And I was the exact same. So like when I was reading 10 pages a day, it was great. But now I try and read when I can, when I feel like it a bit more. I think it's like you were saying, it's important to have those habits and those goals and those things. But it's like you were saying, I think it's harder for Gen Z and millennials in this day and age because there's so much resources online and there's so many people telling you of
what to do,
ways that work for them. Like this 3 or 4 hour morning routine where it's like I get up, I meditate, I breath work, I drink water and lemon and salt, and then I drink.
By the time is like
so
4
by the
PM.
time 4 p.m. it's like, do you even get any work done? You know, it's like
Literally.
all of this stuff. But then you look at that and you're like, wow, well, I'm really inadequate because you know they're doing that and they make a shit ton of money and all the rest.
Yeah.
When I think it's about doing things that
works for you.
Work for you, and I think when you look at things sustainably and in the long run, you've got to work that out. So I think definitely there's always things to improve, there's always things to work on, but then again it's also giving yourself that like hug and saying, you know, do what feels right. You know,
for you, yeah.
Go by that rule, because I think I'm the same in terms of like the perfectionist and having those, because I feel like the perfectionist and the feeling of unworthiness, the genius thing, kind of go hand in hand, because you're setting these high goals, and then if you don't get them, then you feel unworthy, and then it's kind of, do you see it? It's almost like those two play with each other a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I get that, because it's like Conor McGregor. He says always celebrate the little wins.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much to be said for that, because I think it's really important to do that.
Just give yourself a tap on the shoulder, like, well done, man. Like, you had even if you feel like you didn't do much today, but you recorded an episode. I'm talking for ourselves. Like, for some people, maybe going to be clean the whole flat, or
making your bed, meal prep, or whatever.
Just stuff like that, and like, well done, man. Like, you actually did this.
I think the more times that you count up your losses in a day, it just plays into that.
Yeah,
accumulates, and then you start to feel even worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so that's why I think it's really important when you do the things that you say you're going to do. Like, if you go to bed at the time that you say you're going to, and wake up at the time that you're going to, you start getting into the mindset of like, yes, I can do those things, instead of like, if you're, eat that snack, or if you eat, go to bed way past the time that you said you're going, it kind of stacks up, and then you're sort of already putting yourself in a negative frame of mind.
Yeah. Well, it's like, imagine if you meet a kid, and but if you have a kid or a little brother or sister or nephew or niece, and every time she or he does something, you say, oh, it's you're just discouraging him, like, it's not good enough. Like, like, think about the same way when you tell these things to yourself. Like, you're not encouraging yourself, like, oh, well done. You say, oh no, like, you could have done better. But then it's like, at one point, you're just going to feel like whatever I'm doing, it's not good enough, or I could have done better. Like, so what's the point of doing it? So you lose that motivation and the discipline of doing it. But imagine if you getting encouraged every time you do the things, like, yeah, man, like, that was actually great, but you could do this or this better. And I think you did here really well. It's like, okay, like, you actually feel better about yourself, and how you next time you approach the things, you're like, okay, I didn't really do this thing well last time, so how can I make it a little bit better? But I did this time really well, so I'll just keep it the same, or like do a little bit, push a little bit more. Just be your best friend for yourself, rather than just this dictator that everything, whatever you do, everything's wrong.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's trying not to sit above yourself.
Yeah.
Putting yourself down.
Yeah.
That was sorry. Yeah, go.
Yeah, you go for it.
No. Honestly, I wasn't gonna. You go.
Okay. So I was thinking, how would you? I guess we covered a little bit, but in terms of, if you feel like an imposter, how would you go about overcoming it?
I think I would, like we were saying, recognizing that there is the feeling that is there.
If you would put like actionable tasks to do to overcome, like, I
wrote this down
as an example. You change your job right now. You started a podcast right now. What did you do to overcome imposter syndrome?
So what I did was acknowledge the feeling, replace the negative talk with more of a positive affirmation, in terms of saying, like, I can do it, I'm capable of doing it. Sharing my feelings, like, I'm very lucky that I have Charlie, even yourself, like, people around me where I can kind of offload that feeling, looking at the goals that I have and breaking them down into goals that I can control, not ones that are overextended. And then the other one was like embracing it as a learning opportunity, so removing the expectation, like we
Mhm.
mentioned. And then again, I think keeping a success journal and like
Yeah.
writing down accomplishments, positive feedback, reflecting on it when those feelings of inadequacy arise is really important. And then, yeah, sort of putting yourself in a frame of mind where you're able to sort of stay on track and keep that visualization process going. You know, those are all points that have kind of, where I've kind of steered off and veered off and been like, oh, I'm an imposter. It's going, okay, I recognize that.
Mm.
I see the thought. I can do it. Sharing that if I need to. Reflecting on those goals. Looking back at that sort of like, this is a point for me to learn and grow from. So that's
Yeah.
a benefit.
Executing on it as well, like,
And then executing it. Yeah, I think it's, and then holding yourself from a place of, love and compassion.
yeah, man. Like, because I don't think you can overcome it by just thinking about it. You'll just make it worse. So actually execute, and as you executing on that thing every day, feel like, okay, well done. Like I did quite well today. Maybe I could do better on this next time, but give yourself the credit. And for me personally, what really helped to overcome that feeling was just the therapy. Like, I learned so much through giving myself the credit, like having the stack of evidence that I did good amount of things in the past. And I started to, and quite recently actually, I started to view myself as this person who has the positive characteristics. Like, I'm kind, I'm a good son, I'm a good brother, I'm a good partner, I'm a good friend, like I feel handsome. Like, all of these things is just like, I view myself for that, not for the amount of money I've got in my bank account, the car I'm driving, the house I'm living, the girlfriend I have. Like, all of these things is just like, is good for me, and external things doesn't really matter. And just quite recently I started to only realize that people like me not because of what I have in a background, is because of who I am as a person. And I feel it's really important to realize that.
Yeah, 100%. That's one point I've been thinking on a lot as well recently. It's not about the things that you have or what you have to show for yourself. It's the person that you are, and the intent that you have, and the integrity, and who you are and what your values are.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I think it's such an important win to sort of know yourself fundamentally in a way that goes, well, this is who I am and these are what my values are. Am I living in accordance with those? And do people see that? And my close friendship group, is my friends and family around me, do they see me for that kind of person? Because, dude, like, even like, you'll always be my friend regardless of whether or not you drive a nice car or have a nice house.
Exactly.
And I love you for who you are. And I know that's the same for other friends around me as well. It's never once been about that, you know. And I think that it's reminding yourself of that. It's like, and then having the gratitude around that as well. Like, what is it you're grateful for? How is that important to you? And how does that make you feel? I think those are all really important points when being in that state of imposter syndrome, is like recognizing what it is that you have and why is that important, I think has also helped me. But I think going back to it, sort of like in conclusion, is sort of saying that it's a really powerful strategy for redefining your success, is embracing imperfection and being okay with that. It's not going to go your way, but that's the beauty of it. That's the learning curvature of it. And like we were saying, like focusing on those more manageable tasks and goals that allow you to steer back on track towards what it is that you want to achieve, not overextending far beyond your means.
Focus on your input, what you can actually contribute to the goal, rather than focusing on external things.
That helped me so much with just this project alone, like focusing on what it is that we can control.
Yeah.
Well, what we control is the amount of episodes that we record, the input that we put into that. And that allowed me to go, well, there's no expectation of when this should be something of what it is. And to be honest, that's why it will get to where it goes to.
Yeah.
I know that for a fact. Do you want a secret question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Oh no, do you want to conclude first?
I didn't really have anything to conclude, to be honest.
Okay.
Like, you summarized quite well. I guess no matter if you 18 years old or 60 years old, at some point in life you're going to feel, or you felt, an imposter. And it's just a natural feeling, a natural thing to feel as a human, that you don't really belong. Maybe not natural. If you felt really loved when you was a child, you're going to avoid it at some point in your life. But we want to do our best every time as humans. We don't want to just, like, if we're getting hired, obviously we want to do the best job. We're not here just to be there, you know. So you're going to feel that, and I feel, yeah, if you acknowledge it, you meet that with humility, with gratitude, because you know that, like, after that feeling, in 3, 4, 6 months time, you're going to feel a lot better, a lot more confident of yourself, and you're going to another stack of evidence that, yeah, I can do things. And that's really important. That's one book that you and Charlie recommended me to read, The Slight Edge.
Yeah.
That was just, yeah, if people can get their hands on it, is
I got a really funny story. So with The Slight Edge, it was the first book I kind of read during lockdown that really helped me sort of get into the whole personal development thing. And I gave it to a friend, and it was one of those things where I never got it back. And I was really annoyed, and I was thinking about it for recently. And me and Charlie did an event at this office party, and I'm not going to say which office it was, but it was like a fucking nice office, and there was like a wall of books. And I was like just thinking like, oh yeah, what books are there? And I was like, The Slight Edge is there. And I was like, I think that's the universe saying that I need this book back.
You took it.
I fucking yanked that book.
That's mad.
So I was like, looking at it, I was like, if I'm going to, I'm not advocating stealing, but basically I like, you know.
You borrowed it.
I borrowed it, long-term borrowed it. And I think we'll go, and I was like, I'll read it and I can always return it because we'll obviously do another event there, but
that's it.
It's a long-term borrow. For sure.
That's it.
Just admitted I've stolen there.
Perfect.
My secret question to you is, have you ever turned down opportunities due to feelings of inadequacy?
That's a good question. At least I'm not asking, like, at least I'm not asking you a question and then I say, oh, that's a good question. Because a bit off topic, but I was rewatching a couple of episodes of our previous episodes. And there were a couple of times when I asked you a question and then you asked me the same question back. And I'm like, oh, that's a good question. But yeah, no, I don't think I ever turn it down. Because for some reason, I always felt that if I'm going to, I know that's an opportunity. And I know it's going to be really hard for me to maybe do it, or I'm gonna fail at it, but at least I'm gonna try it. And that's actually the mindset I always carried with myself, that I'm always going to at least try to do it, and whatever happens. And so no, I never really turn it down. I mean, unless I turn it down because it just didn't really make sense to me.
Do you know what's really funny? When I came up with that question, I was like, I guarantee he's going to say he's not going to turn down an opportunity, because I know you're the kind of person that would go in and go for it.
Thank you, man. I feel like you should take all the opportunities, because you never know what can happen. Like with this podcast, there was literally a talk in a coffee shop, and then you like, would you like to do a podcast? I was like, yeah, let's try it, because I really wanted to do it as well, but I didn't really have anyone to do it with, and I just didn't want to do it myself. I feel like if I have someone to talk all the time, it'll be a lot better. And looking for guests all the time is not the type of podcast I want to do. So yeah.
Should we wrap it up there?
Well, you kind of answered my secret question, because I want to just ask if you ever felt like an imposter, but that was the first question I asked you. So without even knowing.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you to anyone that's made it this far. If there's anything that you would like us to talk about or any guests that you would like us on, please get in touch. All of the links in the descriptions are in below. We're active on Instagram, so please get in touch there. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next one.
See you in the next one.
Take care.